Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. I'm happy that more and more people are joining in. I hope you can hear me fine. If yes, it would be nice if you can just send a quick message, giving quick feedback if you can hear my voice properly. Cool, thank you, Atreya. I'm currently in Georgia running a program in Tbilisi, and Lorik, another participant on the OEP, is sitting right next to me. So she's joining into the webinar live today. I hope she'll be quiet. She's just eating her yogurt and enjoying me speaking. So if you want to see me running a live webinar, you should come on field with me, and then you can probably also sit next to me. Okay, cool. Sorry, there was a little bit of confusion because of the time. I know that EduDip sometimes doesn't display it properly, and I knew when I was sending it out that it just didn't properly kind of catch the time zone that I was in, and that's why it's now showing the wrong time. So, but I'm happy that you read the email properly, because the time that was given in the invitation itself was correct. Just EduDip sometimes, does weird things and then messes it up. So yeah, sorry for this confusion, but I'm happy that we have 4 people plus Lorik, which is 5 then on this webinar now. Cool. So let's get right into it. We will discuss today basically the main goal is to discuss the introduction into the Create stage. I'll give a very brief feedback about the online education program so far, just very general. Then the introduction into how to create a game will be the longest part of this presentation, and then I will give you an overview of the next 3 months of the online education program, which are the final 3 months. Then it's just a quick reminder of how I would like you to name the games on SSP when you enter them. And after our final round of questions and answers, if there are any, I will give you another summary of the tasks that you need to complete in September. So yeah, let's get right into it. If you have any questions in between, please don't hesitate and don't wait to write them in the box. I think we are all quite used to it by now, and yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that come up during the webinar. The feedback so far, I can give you, obviously just a very general feedback. I think most of you who are here on this webinar are very much up to date with all the tasks. So I want to say thank you to everyone who is updating the OEP feedback sheet, the Google Forms that we send out every month, and also everybody who has entered 4 different adaptations on Sports Session Planner. I have seen that there are a couple of people have sent me emails in the past couple of days. I think Atreya was one of them, and then I think somebody else, Francis, I think, sent an email as well. If anybody else has entered any games, please be a little bit patient with us. At the moment, I'm running on-field programs for the past 3 weeks now, and I have 1 more week to go. So I will get back to you within the next 2 weeks and give you feedback about any of the adapted games that you have entered. And I hope that you will also receive feedback from other participants. As you hopefully remember, you were supposed in August to implement 2 of your own adapted games, and also pick 2 adapted games from other participants, and then implement them in your community and give feedback. The feedback sheet for August will also be up and ready in the next 1 to 2 weeks. I'm a little bit behind with everything at the moment, because it's just basically a full-time job to run the on-field programs, and then I have to try to keep up with the responsibilities regarding my off-field work, and some very often that then just lags behind a little bit. But yeah, I will catch up, and as soon as I'm done with my last program in Albania next week. I just want to also remind you that it is necessary that everybody completes the monthly tasks in order also to be rewarded with a certificate, and also in order to learn and to improve your skills. So it's important that you use Sports Session Planner, that you enter your games there, that you implement the games on field, that you fill in the feedback sheet, where you can also enter your feedback if you don't understand something. I had on our drive from Armenia to Georgia, I had a chat with Lorik about implementing other people's games, and Lorik was saying that she was struggling to understand the games from other people. And if that is the case, then please write that into your feedback. That's why it's there, and then that helps as well. So even if you haven't implemented a game, but you have looked at a game for 30 minutes and tried to understand it, and you haven't, then take the game and give the person feedback that has entered that particular game on Sports Session Planner, because that's the only way we can learn from each other, and that's the only way the other person can also know how to improve. So that is very important, and the success of the program also highly relies on your participation. Okay, you already sent the feedback. The others done. Yeah, I sent an email. I would need to look. I sent an email at the beginning of August, because I know that in July you were supposed to implement 2 adapted games from other participants. And then in the feedback form for July, we ask you to give feedback to other coaches. And I have sent probably like 6, 7 emails, 8 emails, all the feedback I found on the Google feedback form. I have copied and pasted into an email. So like, let's say, Jorge, you have implemented a game from Betty or from Lorik or somebody else. I can't remember now all the details. Then I have copied you on an email that I sent Betty, and sent your feedback to Betty. So I've done all of that. If you haven't received any feedback, then your game hasn't been played, or nobody has entered any feedback for your games. So that's something I can't influence. So Jorge, if you haven't received any feedback, then that means that nobody, unfortunately, has implemented your games. But I will obviously look for the feedback in August now, if anybody has entered anything, and then as soon as the feedback sheet will be up for August, you will be able to enter your feedback for the games that you have implemented. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, Jorge, you're already asking, so if you have any questions regarding the requirements and tasks you still need to do, please let me know, or please type your questions into the box. Yeah, so basically what is on my desk at the moment is to get the feedback sheet ready for the last month, for August, so you can fill it in. Once that is ready, I will post it on Facebook Workplace, and then yeah, I think that's everything that I need to do, and then obviously send you feedback for the games you have adapted in the past 3 to 4 weeks. As I said, I've been on field and haven't been able to check much on Sports Session Planner, to be honest, but I will catch up on that. So yeah, then I will go now right into what it means to create a game, because that will be now the task and the requirement for the next 3 months, that you practice and learn to develop a game from scratch, from the idea of addressing a specific social issue up to the point where you actually implement it on the field. And I will go with you now over the next over 10 different points to describe this process. So as you can see, point number 1 is you need to identify a problem or social issue you want to address. That's the starting point. And that can be a very general issue. I've listed here alcohol and drug abuse, or it can be unemployment, or it can be an issue of HIV/AIDS, or it can be an issue around the environment. Yeah, any social issue you might see in your community, or that are relevant to the players that you work with. But those social issues are very wide and they are very big. So after you have identified a social issue, it's important then to specify for yourself which topic you want to address within that social issue. So when we take again the example of alcohol and drug abuse, you can then focus on the effects and consequences of alcohol and drug abuse, for example. Or you can focus on the reasons for alcohol and drug abuse. Or you can focus on how to prevent alcohol and drug abuse. And again, that's just 3 examples. There might be more examples of aspects around alcohol and drug abuse that might be relevant. So instead of addressing it very widely, you need to specify in order to be able to create a game, because you can't cover the whole issue of alcohol and drug abuse within one game. So that's the second step to specify. It's very, very important. Otherwise, it will just go beyond any limitations. Then the third step would be, once you have obviously identified the issue and the problem, but then you also need to consider the solutions and alternatives for the social issue you want to address. So, for example, if we talk about prevention of alcohol and drug abuse, what can be a solution for preventing? And that can be to talk about safe spaces for children and youth and address that through the game, or to talk about ways to avoid alcohol abuse. You know, what can somebody do? What can a child do? What can a teenager do to avoid alcohol abuse? If you want to talk about prevention, if you want to talk about the effects and consequences, then what can be the solution? What can somebody do? We talk about the different effects and consequences, then we can talk about what can we do once we know the effects and consequences, what can be the next step. And that refers also right to the next point, because we want to make the problem and the solution visible in the game. So I've described it already a little bit in the past 2 points, that it's not just addressing a social issue and being aware of and being able to talk about it, but we also need to think, how can it become visible in the game? And I think the 2 words "and" and "in" are underlined in this point number 4 because they're so important. The problem and the solution should be visible in the game or through the game. So it can be then, for example, that taggers represent drug abusers, or balls are representing safe spaces, or squares are representing safe spaces, or goals are representing ways to avoid alcohol and drug abuse. So different items within the game have a meaning. That's what it means when we talk about this, the problem and the solution are becoming visible. So it's not just playing a game of sport or a game of football or handball or whatever it is. It's playing it with a meaning. Then the next step would be to decide about the specific setup. So you obviously need to know, then make decisions. Okay, is it a game that will include balls or that will not include any balls? You need to decide about the size of the pitch, about the material you want to use. Do you want to use cones? Do you want to use bibs? Do you want to use, I don't know, taggers, different teams? There's, so many different opportunities how you can create activities. And you also have to decide about the rules. Will there be people who are allowed to run and others who are only allowed to walk? Or will there be a limited number of touches that somebody has? Or any other restrictions or challenges you want to give certain people? And it might sound now very abstract, but I'm trying to give you a broad picture of what are the opportunities and what you also need to consider when creating a game. And then the 6th step would be to decide about possible progressions to either make the game more challenging, to create more conflict, or to make the solutions visible. And this refers again to point number 4. So to make the game more challenging, you can, for example, add balls or add obstacles or restrictions to the game. Or like when we talk about making the solutions visible, for example, when we play a tag game where the taggers represent alcohol and drug abusers, at the beginning we can play the game with no safe spaces, so you can't rescue yourself anywhere. The taggers can get anywhere and they can tag you, and when you are tagged, you are affected by alcohol and drugs and you can't move anymore. In the progression, we can then talk about safe spaces and create safe spaces on the field where people can be safe and they can't be tagged. So that's how you can involve a progression within the game where the solutions can become visible. I hope all of this makes sense so far. If you have any questions, please let me know. And then the next point, number 7, is that you also need to think of questions that you can ask as a coach. So if we again take the example of creating a game about alcohol and drug abuse, and basically, let's say, for example, prevention of alcohol and drug abuse, you can ask, how did it feel to be a drug abuser if you have those people in your game, if you have people who represent drug abusers? Or what did you do to avoid drugs and alcohol? Like, how did you behave? How did you behave within the game? What did you do? Yeah. How did you feel when you were attacked and you were not able to run anymore? There's many different questions we can think of, and as a coach, it's good to think about those questions beforehand, and have them ready, and then apply them to the situation. And then the last 3 points are, I think, the most easiest one in this whole process. You can also then decide, obviously, for a game name, which makes it then easier to identify, and probably also know from the title of the game already what the game is about and what it addresses. And very important it is, it's also very important to obviously implement the game, to play it with your players and try it out. Most of the time the game is not perfect as long as it's on paper, so you need to play it and then reflect on the game and make adjustments if necessary. Change the size, or change the number of taggers, or change the setup, or add balls, or make it more challenging if you feel it's too easy. So many things that you can only find out if you implement it, and then you can make adjustments by going through the points number 2 to number 5 that I've just described. And after that, you can play it again. So this process of creating games and evaluating them is also an ongoing process. It's not done after one time, usually. Okay, so that's the 10 points that I wanted to go over. I hope that they are quite clear and that they will help you to create your own games. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm happy to answer or to clarify your doubts or clarify any confusion. Any questions? I'll also go back so you can also have a second look at the slides, and I will also provide this presentation again. You can download it from EduDip. I will also post it on Facebook Workplace, so you will also have these 10 steps available. You don't need to remember them or write them down. You will be able to download that after the webinar and look at it as you go through the process of creating games.
For me, I think the right sport exercise is challenging. I know issues, but like the exercise, how to combine the sport in it. I know issues, the question also, but
okay. So yeah, Lorik is just talking to me, I think I understood correctly that to combine the social issue with the actual activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, I think that is one of the biggest challenges, and I think that's why we also have these 3 months to learn it and to go through it. And please also feel free. Please also feel free if you have a social issue and have a little bit of an idea. We are always available. Like if you don't then just leave it and say oh, I couldn't make it, or I couldn't finish it. If you have an idea, I have a social issue and I want to address it, please get in contact with us. Like Charlie and myself, we will not call you, or we will not bug you and say oh, have you done this, have you done that? But you can reach out to us on Facebook Workplace. You can reach out to us via email. We can set up a Skype call. We can send ideas via Facebook Workplace. So if you struggle with combining the social issue with an actual game, then yeah, please let us know, and we are happy to assist. But I think one advice I can give you is just make certain decisions. So if you have a social issue, then first you, I think, need to think, do I want it to be a football game, or a game that includes balls, or that doesn't include balls? Those aspects, and also to specify the problem usually helps. Like to have a broad social issue is very difficult to create a game. That's why I also said the point number 2 is so important, to identify and decide for a specific topic. It can't be alcohol and drug abuse. The game can't be about alcohol and drug abuse. It can be about the effects and consequences of alcohol and drug abuse, or the importance of protecting the forest. Yeah, that can be a game. It can't be about the environment. It's too general. It can't be about HIV. It's too general. It has to be about how can we prevent HIV and AIDS, or how can we reduce the stigma around HIV and AIDS. These very specific topics are very important in order to be able to bring it onto the football pitch. I think that's very important advice. I also want to try to respond to the question from Althrea. Would it be wise to make changes while playing the game? Yeah, if you have ideas of changes you want to make, of course. Yeah, I make that all the time. I'm feeling also quite comfortable with it. But if I'm playing a game and I realize, oh no, this doesn't work, the football pitch is too big, or is too small, or something else happens, then I make adjustments. Yeah, if something comes to your mind and you feel comfortable with it, yeah, implement it straight away and see how it changes, and if it changes. Yeah, definitely. Jorge asks, to create a game is necessary to create everything in the game? Well, I want to talk about education and use the Tagger game that work, or is only an adapted game. Yeah, it's quite a fine borderline between adapted game. Yeah, I will repeat in a second, Andrea. A fine borderline between an adapted game and a created game. A tag game, it's usually a tag game. And if you address a very specific topic around education, I think I would count it as a created game if it doesn't exist specifically like that already. But you can also find creative ideas with a tag game. So can you think of a tag game where you can include a ball? Or can you think of a tag game where you can include a ball and a chain, or something there's or ball and save spaces, and then play it as a tag game. So to make it more complicated, more challenging, I think that's where there's always room for improvement. There's always room for creativity. So yeah, I will repeat, Altrea, what I just said. I hope you can hear me now. I would say, yeah, of course you can always make adjustments and changes while playing the game. If you feel comfortable with that, please do. I do that very often when I see something doesn't work, or the pitch is too small, or is too big, or there's too many players, or there's whatever. It's too easy, then I make it more complicated. Yeah, or I change something. But it's, I think, very much up to you how comfortable you feel, and it's also probably a question of experience. The more experienced you are, the more comfortable you also will be to make adjustments, straight away. So I hope that was transmitted now, Altria, and you could hear me. Any other questions?
For example, can this be a game, healthy relationship? It's broad.
Okay. Yeah, Lorik is just asking me if it can be a game about healthy relationships. Yeah, I think it can be. I would now ask myself: do you talk about healthy relation? Do you want to talk about healthy relationships in general, or a relationship in the sense of like a romantic relationship about man and woman who are dating? That could be something you can think about. Do you want to go that specific, or you want to keep it open? And I would say you can keep it open, but then you need to maneuver the game in that way. Is it just in general, how should friendships be? What is a healthy friendship? What is a healthy relationship? In a very general understanding, or do we want to address healthy relationships as a romantic relationship between two people who fall in love with each other? That's something you can then ask yourself, and I think then you can get into the core topic. Again, you have a follow-up question, Altria. I'm happy to respond to that. Does it break the flow? And I think that's exactly an important aspect. You also need to see like the dynamic of the group. Do you feel does it break the flow, or do you feel it's good because the game is not flowing? So if the game is flowing, then I would say why would you need to make changes? But usually when you think of making changes, it is because the game is not flowing. And that's why I think if you think that your change will make the game flowing more, then of course it's good to take a break. Because that would always be one of the criteria for me. I would only make changes if I feel the game is not flowing. So I hope that answers your question. Exactly. That's the question I gave back to Lorik, David. The question of if Lorik refers more to the broader sense of a healthy relationship, and that can be that's just a question she would need to ask herself. What does she want to address? Exactly. Yeah. Meaning more positive aspects in society that can be reinforced. Like, what does a healthy relationship between two people look like? Yeah. And then it can be like, it is based on respect, and it's based on like friendship, and it's based on honesty and things like that. I think that's what comes to my mind when I think of healthy relationship. And then we can think like, okay, cool. So that is the solution. So we want honesty, we want respect, we want supporting each other, helping each other to grow as humans, as people. So that would be the solutions. And then we can think like, okay, how can that become visible in the game? Is it represented by different goals, or is it represented by different safe spaces? So it's like, there's millions of ideas. And the taggers can represent then the things that make relationships unhealthy, if you want to play a tagging game. Yeah. Or the one team can represent, if you play a football game, the one team can represent those aspects that make relationships unhealthy. So, I think it doesn't need to, I think you're right, David, it doesn't need to always focus on addressing a problem or issue. It doesn't need, I would need to think now a little bit about it, how it with healthy relationships, in order to, it doesn't need to, you could play a game, for example, where you have different squares. We played today a game, for example, we had different squares, and in these different squares were different teams, and the squares represented different aspects of, like, what do people think is a beautiful woman. That was the game we played today. And you could play that about healthy relationship and say, like, okay, what are aspects of a healthy relationship? And then you assign those aspects into the squares. I would count that more now as an adaptation, because it's like a quite common existing game already. But as I said, the borderline between adapted and created games is quite narrow. So I will not judge too strictly on that. Yeah, but definitely, David, I agree. You can create a game without focusing always on the negative aspects, on the issues. Yeah. Yeah, very good questions. Thank you for asking. It's very good. I also see some people still joined in. That's good. Welcome, Paul, and welcome, Jesus. I hope you could still follow at least a little bit so far. If there's more questions or comments, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll slowly move on to the next slide, which addresses the content and the timeline of the create stage. As I'm sure you're all aware of, the first two stages that we called educate or learn, and then the second stage, adapt, are now over, and we are now moving into the create stage. And I've just explained one of the core aspects that will basically accompany us over the next 3 months until the end of November, when you then will hopefully all successfully graduate from the online education program. We will have now a detailed, like I copied here again, the detailed overview for the next 3 months. I will not focus too much on October and November, because we will have other follow-up webinars in the next months, so we can then talk about the tasks you need to do in greater detail. So we will now mainly focus on the first column that refers to this month. So currently, CAC, what we provide, again, we're currently on this webinar today. We will give you the feedback for the created games that you will develop this month. Provide a feedback questionnaire as in the past months, and as I mentioned before, we are always there to support you via Skype, email, workplace, as you wish, but we do that on request, so we will not bug you and beg you for your cooperation. So it's up to you to get in touch with us if you need to, or if you want to have our support. Then your off-field responsibilities is to create 2 games during the next 4 weeks. I think that's doable, and enter those games on SSP. You can keep them on private at the moment until you have received feedback from us that we will give you then once it's entered. It's good to notify us if you want, so we are aware of it much faster. I'm not looking every day on SSP if somebody has entered something, looking from time to time. So if you want to notify us, that's great. That's appreciated. You need to fill in then the feedback questionnaire on Google Forms. As I said, you will be informed and will be posted on Facebook Workplace once it's up. And obviously, it's always good to check Facebook Workplace regularly. I would say at least once a week. It's good to log in and see what's up and what news are there. People posting pictures, videos, and we are posting news there as well, so you don't miss anything. And then on field, you should please implement your created games. And now in this month of September, I think, or I hope most of you have received or downloaded the Peace One Day packet. And if you have, then and if you haven't, please download it and then implement it also within your players. So you have also already some created games. I think it's 4 or 5 games in the packet that you can play within your community. And I know many people have activities planned. There will be another webinar next week, Wednesday, where Charlie will speak in greater detail about the Peace One Day packet, about the activities you can do, about the feedback you can send. So please join in again next week, Wednesday, for the webinar regarding the Peace One Day packet and the Peace One Day Day on September 21st. Cool. Then just a quick reminder about how to name your created games. It's the same as with the adapted games, to follow the pattern of your name, the name of your organization, the name of your game, and the social theme. So applying it to an example of a game that I have created. So my name, Markus Bench, my organization, CAC. The name of the game was End War Against Girls and Women, and the social theme was female empowerment. So if you can please follow this pattern, that would help us very much. Also to find games in future and to be able to allocate them to a specific person or to a specific country or to a specific organization that helps us. Cool. Yeah. Final round of questions and answers. If you have any questions or comments regarding any aspect of the OEP, can be Google feedback sheet or whatever comes to your mind, or anything we have discussed today, please let me know. Please type it in the box on the bottom right, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, if there's any questions coming in, I'm happy to answer. If you still type, I will get it in a few seconds, I'm sure. I'll just move on and give you again a summary of the task for September that we have just discussed during the webinar. So please catch up on any tasks that you have not completed yet. I think you know best what you have done and what you haven't done. Then you create 2 new games during this month, and then you can also you obviously also need to implement the created games with your team or students, players. Implement the Peace One Day packet and share your feedback. More details will follow. Will follow next week, Wednesday, during the webinar. And then enter the created games on SSP. And if you wish, you can. We appreciate if you can inform myself or Charlie so you can receive your feedback. And then please implement the suggested changes as far as you feel comfortable with them, and as far as you can, agree with them into your games. Very often it's comments about regarding like a better understanding of the game and a better description of the rules. That's very often the main issue we are addressing, when it's probably not that clear for somebody to know what you would like them to do. And then, please also enter your feedback into the Google feedback form that, as I said, will be up in about 1 to 2 weeks. Okay. Cool. Yeah, if Lorik wants to, she can share. I'm just reading your question, David. Asking if Lorik wants to share any of her experience on field with CAC so far at the moment. And I don't know if you feel ready to say anything about that.
Yeah, I can share.
Yeah, perfect. Then before we say goodbye, then Lorik has the opportunity to
Should I
speak.
talk?
Yeah, you can just talk. They will hear you.
Hi, David. So I'm with CAC. The program name is Community Impact Coach. And so we had seminar in Yerevan, in Armenia, in Yerevan and Dilijan, and we recruited educators and coaches with CAC Games, and now we are doing somehow similar seminar with Georgians in Tbilisi. So they are mostly coaches from federation, different disciplines, and I am helping them on field. And also for myself, it's a great experience that I can meet these people and also learn about their social issues and also how they would like to use these games, CAC games, in their community. So it's networking and also sharing experience. And also I have heard from some of them that they want to do some cooperation with us, Goals Armenia, and we are looking forward to it.
Nice. Yeah, and I also think, I mean, the goal is also that Lorik can gain more experience on field in terms of coaching. So it's been like the three of us, Jamie, one of our global citizens, and then Lorik as a community impact coach, and myself as a full-time staff member. We have been basically the coaching team, and we have shared responsibilities on field. So each day, each of us has coached games. So Lorik has coached multiple games this week, and each of us had responsibilities on the field as well. So I think that's a big learning experience as well for Lorik to get more experience, get more confident. Get more familiar with coaching, and we had this week 50 plus participants, so it's also quite a big group. So it's also a challenge. Like how do you manage such a group? How do you get their attention? How do you implement a game with 50 participants, with 50 plus participants? So I think there's a lot of on-field skills that come with that, and that Lorik is gaining through the past 2 weeks, last week in Dilijan and this week now here in Tbilisi.
Yes, regarding your question about female empowerment, so in Armenia with the NGO that I'm working in, it's called Goals Armenia, Girls of Armenia Leadership Soccer. So we mostly do girls empowerment programs, and here in Georgia also there is this issue based on the investigations we did, but actually we are also doing some other games which exist in this community. Like here we also play games about drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And yes, but mostly my programs and everything are related to female empowerment.
And I think the way I understood David's question is also if you with Goals Armenia work in Georgia as well, but your work is focused on Armenia.
Yeah.
And basically this exchange as a CIC coming to Georgia is also, as you described, Lorik, is also an opportunity for you to build relationship and to build ties and connection with people from here. But Goals Armenia, as it is at the moment, is not operating within Georgia. So it's focusing on female empowerment, but solely in Armenia and different communities. So you can also say a couple of words of like where do you work in Armenia and like about the programs you run and the communities you work in.
Yeah, about Goals, you can also search and find us on social media. But briefly, I can say that we have leagues, girls soccer leagues in 4 regions of Armenia, and in each league we have 7 to 8 teams. So the main, we can say, the important reason why we recruited, or why we have such a program, it's because girls in Armenia, mostly in the regions, in the villages, they don't have this opportunity to play soccer and to be involved in sport. So we want to raise this issue and also give girls, which they are 12 to 15 years old, this opportunity to play soccer and feel confident. And also we have some other programs like summer camps, we have trainings. Each month we have a training in one of the regions. It can be a village or a city in Armenia, and we do CAC games with educators. So after that we have a program called After School Club that they can use. So we created modules or handbooks about themes like discrimination and equality, and we have another one, environment and healthy lifestyle, and the third one is leadership and problem solving. So they choose one of the packets that they would use in their community. It can be a school or an organization or university, and then they go through this course with their students.
Yeah, so it's basically both, like on the one hand empowering young girls through the leagues, and at the same time educating adults through these monthly coaching clinics that Goals Armenia runs in different regions. And I think CAC is very happy to support both of these causes and both of these programs. I think through the programs that we have run in Yerevan and Dilijan in the past 2 weeks, we also have strengthened the ties that Goals Armenia has into these regions, into these communities, and also invited and raised awareness amongst more people about sport for social impact and about the existence of Goals Armenia. So I think that will also help Goals Armenia in future to run their programs, to run their leagues, and to get more people involved with the after school clubs, for example.
Thank you, David and Ali.
Yeah, cool. If there's no other questions, then we would finish up the webinar. And it's also from my side, I want to say thank you for your participation and for all the questions that you ask, and for bringing up and for digging deeper within the work of Lorik. Yeah, Jordan, that's what happens. Yeah, I was almost about to say you're always late, but that's also not really true. So sorry Jordan, you have missed it. So you'll have to watch the recording. Thank you, Andrea. I think Lorik appreciates that. All the best for all you guys for the next 4 weeks. We will have our next webinar in early October, in the first week of October. I will send an invitation again, then hopefully with the correct time and no confusions with EduDip. Thank you for being online today. Thank you for joining in, and sorry Jordan for being late. Have a good afternoon, have a good evening, or have a good day. Here I think it's 10 a.m. in the morning or something in South America. So enjoy your day, have a good time, and goodbye. Talk soon.